Yeah, carrying on from the interesting conversations I've had here the last few days. I'm going to tell you about the Ibogaine story, or my story with Ibogaine in Portugal. But before that, in 2013, I was a high-functioning, malfunctioning crack cocaine addict who managed to somehow, through a miracle, grow some businesses in the UK and managed to collapse them, or close to collapse them. Anyhow, I found Iboga in 2013 and was treated by a provider. And I had a suicidal death experience in my visions, and which took a long time to sort of come to terms with and so on. And time passed, and I was still intrigued about Iboga. And so it was always on my mind, I need to do something about this, but I kind of wasn't ready, and I wasn't ready. And what happened was that I didn't have a support structure, so I relapsed. And it made me realize that there's more to Iboga than just doing Iboga. So anyhow, what happened was, well, actually, I'm going to rewind a bit. So in Portugal, we do have a drug problem. We have a problem mainly with opiates, long-acting opiates, methadone, Suboxone. But the Portuguese drug problem started quite early on in the 70s. And in 2001, they made a very brave decision to decriminalize drugs in Portugal. This was spearheaded by João Goulão, who is head of CICAD. He's on the management board of the EMCDDA. And I was really following this story and reading about it and trying to understand the country that I was planning to live in, and seeing if there was some traction anywhere, whether there was some potential to introduce Iboga into this marketplace. So in 2015, maybe I should open my notes actually. In 2015, I introduced Ibogaine to João Goulão, who is a gentleman I just mentioned to you. And interestingly enough, I had a conversation with Ben earlier from ICEAS that they had also done the same a few years earlier. And he actually did mention that to me, but there were many changes at government level and many changes at, well, CICAD was formed, and it was kind of lost in the mix. So we were quite happy to engage with him and actually bring Ibogaine back to the forefront of their mind, even if only for a little while. So he said to me, I love your presentation. This is great stuff. I can't believe that you managed to get out of crack addiction with Ibogaine. I was quick to advise him that it wasn't just the Ibogaine. And he took me aside. I was actually with his top psychologist as well that day. He took me aside. He said, Alvaro, he said, this is great work. But if you don't do a clinical trial, forget about it. So that didn't really make any sense to me, clinical trial. You know, what the hell's a clinical trial? I really didn't know. I was completely out of my depth. I'm a crack addict, or recovering crack addict, who has been told that to get something to market, you got to do something with it that is totally beyond me. So this was kind of a bit of a stumbling block for me. So in Portugal, we have Infarmed, which is the equivalent of the FDA in Portugal. Now, I've never met such a prescription-orientated race as the Portuguese. Now, when you go to a pharmacy, you've got to take a ticket. There's so many people getting drugs from the counter. And so it is rife in Portugal. Prescriptions are the way forward in Portugal. So this organization, Infarmed, you know, is heavily involved in the Portuguese public, even if only through the companies that they allow to supply. Now, so off I went, and I was really fortunate. It could have been through Gita at the time, to have been connected with Ibogaine GMP, Ibogaine HCl manufacturer. And I got a lot of support from them. And we decided, I don't know how we even got that far. I must have been crazy at the time in one of my missions to do something substantial. And we decided to embark on a clinical trial. I had no idea what this meant. I had no idea how much money was involved. It just sounded amazing. You know, someone was offering me to get involved and do a clinical trial, so off we went. Then he said to me, well, it doesn't just work like this. You need a, I keep calling them private investigators. They're principal investigators. You need one of these guys. You need a contract research organization. You need a project manager. You need a lot of money. You need a clinic. You need GMP Ibogaine. So then it was getting even more substantial, and I was sort of thinking, okay, well, let's make this happen. So I met a chap who worked at a neuroscience laboratory in Portugal, and he had a great interest in entheogens, and he said to me, look, this could be really interesting. He said, if you can patent a molecule or be involved in a molecule of this nature in Portugal, this is fantastic. I thought, this sounds good. Okay, so all of a sudden I have a principal investigator working for me, and he knew a clinic near Lisbon. Now, this was an addictology clinic, as well as they had their own laboratory facilities for testing. They were the perfect partner to get involved with this. And they told me, well, we got a bit of a problem because your protocol looks good, but we don't just have an opiate patient. They might do cannabis, they might drink alcohol, and your protocol is too rigid. So you need to do something about this. So we tweaked it and played around with it and so on. Now, the journey continued, and we found a project manager. Now, these people were wonderful because they gave us a lot of information. They kind of helped us move on to the next stage of finding a contract research organization. I mean, who the hell are these guys? Well, they kind of run the trial, collect the data, make sure that you are following protocols and so on and so forth. So that all came together really, really nicely. In the meantime, we had to submit the clinical trial to EUDRA, which is a European clinical trials database. I mean, that was a mission in itself. You would have thought that would be easy, but it wasn't that easy. And countless hours and hours and hours of rewriting the protocol, sending it back and forth, back and forth. And yeah, I could have had a pilot license by now with the hours I spent on this damn stuff. I kind of missed all the Portuguese story of where they're at. You know, the Portuguese decriminalization story is very interesting. I mean, we have HIV has come down as a result. Hep C is more managed. We've got allegedly less drug-related crime. We got potentially less drug-related incarcerations. Now, there are two sides to this information, and the pro-campaign attribute this to resources being channeled into more substantial crime, for example, so hence that sort of data. But the opposing campaign attribute it to lax laws. Now, people say to me, and have many times at this conference, wow, Portugal, fantastic, drugs are legal, you can do what you want out there, let's go and set up a clinic. Well, I kind of probably thought the same. It's not the case. It is not the case. It is so conservative, there is so much red tape, you know, and don't do this alone. Don't run like I did. It's just complete craziness. You don't want to do it. You really don't want to do it. Now, just to touch the decriminalization story in Portugal, there are many factors beyond decriminalization. You know, they have a strong foundation of socialized public health care. You know, they consider drug misuse as a healthcare issue. You know, they're channeling 80–90% of public money. Instead of fighting drugs, they're actually investing in healthcare goals. So we have quite a unique landscape here. And it seems nearly obvious that Portugal is the right place, but it has its challenges. And we have the equivalent of the FDA, who is extremely challenging. Now, I'm kind of gonna, you guys have confused me completely because I had this like all beautiful, it was flashing on the screen and doing all that crazy stuff. And now you've ruined it. So I'm going to talk to you about, I feel for you. I'm going to talk to you about what we did, this clinical protocol that we were going to follow. So we had the clinic, we had the CRO, project managers, investigators, my hard-earned children's school fund, we had it all together. And this protocol was titled an open single escalating fixed dose study of the safety and efficacy of Ibogaine in opioid-dependent subjects. Our objective was to investigate the short-term effects of Ibogaine on opioid withdrawal during a 1-week detox period. Now, that's the inpatient phase. This is going to take place in this clinic outside of Lisbon, which had superb facilities. Furthermore, to investigate the safety of Ibogaine during acute in-hospital opioid withdrawal and during an 8-week post-evaluation follow-up treatment. We were also to investigate the long-term effects on craving and substance use on opiates during an 8-week follow-up. That's the outpatient period. And we were going to have secondary questioning such as possible somatic and psychological effects of Ibogaine, possible predictive factors for response to Ibogaine, and the evaluation of pharmacokinetics, and so on. Now, I'm not going to go into the design of the full study because I can't, but I can tell you that the sample size was of 12 active opioid-dependent subjects that were seeking treatment at the time. Now, in addition to detoxing with Ibogaine, patients would also be subject to multiple medical screenings, neurological, psychiatric, cognitive examinations, and further examined with drug dependency and drug withdrawal checklists. So each patient would also have to voluntarily sign an informed consent document. So with the protocol in hand, we were ready. We had this team all built. Now, just give me a second here while I plow through this stuff. Right, so had a great meeting with my project managers. We were all getting excited. We were having Skype calls with all these experts. To be honest, I couldn't really understand the language. It was beyond me. And some of that has been beyond me here at this conference, believe me. But they turned around and said, I'm really sorry, but this study or clinical trial, phase 1 and phase 2, is just a pilot study. It's actually too small to get market approval. Now, I believed in my naivety that this would get me to market. I mean, that is just total naivety. This is a guy running off with something, trying to make something of it, but not really knowing what the hell he was doing. And, we live and learn. So all of a sudden, we were running with it, and then we weren't. And furthermore, they told me that to get a trial of this nature where you could potentially get the product to market, it was going to cost me 7 to 15 million of the money I hadn't earned yet. So that was it. We abandoned. And in the meantime, while we were creating this noise and getting this clinical trial pilot study on board, people were knocking at our door going, we need treatment, we need treatment. So we kind of did what many people have done. We started treating people. And every single time we treated someone, I had this really big guilty feeling inside. Something is not right about this. It's got to be beyond 5-6 days. Even if you have a really good setup and systems in place and you've got really good people around you helping you, they need so much more when they leave your front door. When you drop them off at the airport, they've got a big grin on their face, but they might enter the plane and that face is going to drop. What am I going to do now? It's really quite disheartening to hear when someone has relapsed because you couldn't go beyond your offering because you just aren't able to. So we have stopped treating patients. But what I can tell you is that we did follow some very strict guidelines. We got all the correct testing criteria, the eligibility criteria had to be adhered to, and we didn't have any adverse effects. But it's only a matter of time. As I keep hearing here, something eventually is going to go wrong. So I am absolutely convinced that the medicalization of Ibogaine treatments is absolutely essential. Now, the challenge that I have in Portugal is that conservative doctors will not prescribe or be involved with medication that hasn't got a big fat medical label with an instruction manual inside the box. That is fact. It's just not going to happen. So I think we got to get a little bit creative. Now, I'm not going to talk about that. But being extremely deflated that I couldn't get even the pilot study off the ground, now it's still possible that we could manage this. But the fact is, it may end up in a medical journal and just get lost. And this is the fear, and I think we've seen this time and time again. So I haven't really given up yet. I find myself as a crossroads at the moment. Do the businesses I know so well, or take a risk and go for Iboga? Now, I am investigating, trying to have Ibogaine, because you won't get Iboga to market. You need to have a medicine that's synthesized, really. But to try and achieve orphan status in Europe for this potential drug to solve this problem. Now, I had it on the screen, as you could see earlier, but I'm going to try and find it for you. So I just want to explain to you in real language what orphan drug status means. Just give me a sec here. Right, okay. So here we go. So the Orphan Drug Act provides for granting special status to a drug or biological product to treat a rare disease or condition upon request of a sponsor. The status is referred to orphan designation or sometimes orphan status. Now, orphan drugs are developed to treat patients suffering from a very serious disease for which no treatment, or at least a satisfactory one, has so far been available. These diseases affect only a small proportion of the population. They say less than 1 person per 200,000 in Europe. Now, I have no idea on the statistics, but I think this is an area really worth investigating further because it might be another route to have this recognized, which is so important. Now, having stopped treating people for the simple reason that we need to medicalize it. The other reason is we need to offer aftercare attached to what we are doing. Just what we heard yesterday here by some of the other speakers, it just shows it is so, so important. Now, I do, however, believe that there are some other modalities that we could consider. There are modalities such as emotional freedom technique, EMDR, which is great for PTSD, focusing on yoga, meditation, Reiki, massage, so many possibilities. Even crazy shit like laughter therapy. It really does amazing things. Family mediation. We're going back to our families. We've got to sort this out before we kind of start reintegrating. It's all about detoxification and ongoing nurturing of the mind, body, and soul. It really, really is. Now, I'm kind of going to finish very shortly. In case I get my presentation up. So, right, whether it's conducting clinical trials, setting up a clinic, a rehab, these are all really, really big challenges. Now, Portugal, despite its forward-thinking policy, has a really, really long way to go. You know, they are not really open to other modalities at the moment, really. We need to keep knocking on those doors, keep making noise, and I believe that eventually something's going to stick. Now, my vision is that Ibogaine made available on the national health in Portugal to all those that need it. Now, this is really quite a big vision, and I think we have to believe in things to finally get there. And that Iboga be considered as a parallel and potentially recognized alternative or addition to other and existing treatment modalities. And it needs to be given the same importance, stand on the same platform so that patients can make informed choices. Thank you.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and get instant access to all of our latest medical care videos. Enjoy your free pass to quality global healthcare.
My name's Ross, and I had a bad addiction to cocaine, and my life was spiralling out of control until I researched and found this treatment centre. At its worst, it was a daily occurrence, and I could tell my health was getting worse. And all other avenues were tried. I would have been hiding it for quite a while before it became quite obvious, and a need for it every single day. And I noticed my relationships and health was suffering because of it. And it was a kind of now or never to fix it, fix myself. I think I had a lot of friends that had been in and out of different rehabs, in mainstream rehabs, and come out and just used straight away. And I knew that what Ibogaine was going to be different through my research was that you know, it offered something that seemed to work for people, and I'm glad I did. It's been better than I thought it would be. It's more personal. They seem to care about you. You're not just a number. Yeah, the breathe breath work, meditation, yoga, just getting out into the country with the animals, which I've always loved animals, and that was good. Just everything really, sort of, yeah, it feels like a family here, and I'm glad I chose this place. But being out here, away from everything, has been perfect. It's been so beneficial. Oh, it's kind of a spiritual place. It's just the feeling that you're cared about here, that they actually care about you. You know, people here have been through it themselves, people that work here and run the place, so they understand. And I think that's a big difference. Also with the counsellors here, brilliant, you know. And I've made friends, yeah, for life, so. Yeah, I think it's a good blend. I think it works. It makes you think more, different way of looking at things, you know, and gives you time out to think things through, and it's a perfect place for that. I'd say forget all the other options and come out here as soon as you can, because it really does work. There's a difference here, massive difference. And yeah, I would say to those people, do it before your life takes your life. It's just so professional here, and they care, like I say, they care.
I'm Alex Galoglian and I'm 27. I've been using for cocaine for like 10 years. And yeah, that's me. 3 months ago, life was pretty bad. I was smoking a lot of spice Mamba they call it, it also is another name, and sniffing a hella load of cocaine. And life just wasn't good, man. I was just dependent on it and kind of had no emotions or anything. I just lost like contact with my family and my friends, and life was pretty bad, man. I was just using every day, and I just couldn't get away from it. And I just went back to my old self, and yeah, it was pretty bad, man. Bad lifestyle. Well, I had no clue about it, to be honest, and it was my family who actually, well, it was my younger brother. He lives in the USA. I was having daily sessions with a guy called Anders Beatty, Ibogaine Counselling Services, and also his partners Ben Taub, who are great guys, man. They really helped me. And I was having sessions every single day with him for 3 weeks. And yeah, man, it was good. Whatever was in my body kind of threw it all up. And I had a few like visionary experiences with it, but nowhere near as much as the TA. I think the PTA I actually felt like something was flowing through my head, clearing some stuff, man, like it was a really weird feeling. But yeah, man, it was like I could really feel it working and doing its work. The TA was much more visionary, and I got put into like, I can't even remember how I got there, but I was like in hell, and I was there I was like in the devil's hell kind of thing, with all like burning lava all around, and there was a lot of like, I was calling them devil's workers, and they looked like people like Gollum, you know, off Lord of the Rings, and they looked like really skinny guys with bent backs, and they were all chained up to things, and they were trying to get to me with like fire sticks and pokers and things, and that lasted for like about an hour, man. Like I really didn't like it. I was crying. I was kind of begging for mercy, man, in a way. It was really weird. Yeah, and then that kind of lasted like an hour and a half, and then I went to like nice. It just stopped like that, and then I went to all sorts of different dimensions, you could say, and I kind of saw a lot of animal type alien things, all with their little rucksacks on, like, yeah, man, I had so many different visions. Like my grandparents who've passed away came to me, like it was like a moon-like face coming from a distance, and as they got there, one by one, they just had big smiles, and it's like they knew what I was doing, like in a way. And then as they got to my face, they just dissolved. And then my granddad came, and then my dad's mum, who's my other grandparent, she came, and they all came one after the other. And then I saw my granddad and Nan together, in his arms. Like, it was really a nice vision to see, man. Yeah, I'm just about to leave. I feel the best I've ever felt in years. Well, over 10 years. I'm feeling great, man. And I'm definitely thinking a lot differently about life. And yeah, this team here at Tabula Rasa have done a great job, man. They're absolutely excellent, really. So I'm just looking forward to getting back out there now, you know. I don't feel like I need anything anymore, which is the best feeling in the world. It's like a natural high I'm on. It's like, it's a really great feeling what I've got now, man. Definitely take Ibogaine to try and recover. It's not like any normal rehab centres or it's a different kind of treatment, you know. It's like this psychedelic treatment, as it's called, is definitely done its work with me. Like, it was like magic, man. Like, I was feeling this, the Iboga running through my brain. It was like on the left side at the top of my head, it was just washing everything out, man. It's really crazy. It's like I've been given a brand new brain again. I can't say I'm never going to relapse, because I'm not going to say never, but I'm not going back to my area where I was. I'm going to the USA, and I'm going to be living with my brother out there, who's very like the opposite to me. So I've got a great like support network with my family and stuff, so that's going to be a big help. And man, I've never felt so confident about it all, to be honest. I feel really good about this time. Yeah, man. I feel really good.
My name's Anders Beattie. I'm an integrative psychotherapist. Mind you, that's not much of a qualification, but my other qualifications are I was in addiction for a long, long while, and I tried every single modality to get out of treatment, to get out of addiction, from doing the rooms, 12 steps, CA, NA, AA, rehabs, plenty of those. They all failed. New relationships, new jobs, geographicals, different countries, different continents. But somehow my addict self always caught up with me, and I always ended up using again. And the only way I was able to fill the huge gaping hole within me was through Ibogaine. Ibogaine was the first thing that filled that hole up, and allowed me to actually start living the good life and becoming the person I am now.
My name's Ben Taub, and along with Anders, the other half of Ibogaine Counselling Services. My background is in anthropology. Spent the past 10, 11 years researching therapeutic use of visionary plants, firstly in South America, looking at indigenous healing modalities with ayahuasca, San Pedro. Later spent time in Mexico working with communities who work with peyote, and later turned my attention to Ibogaine and started working with people in the West, in sort of Western cultures, using Ibogaine as a treatment for addiction. Used it myself for depression, and yeah, before using Ibogaine, I wouldn't say Ibogaine was the thing that turned me around or cured me, but it was a massive facilitator for my return to a healthy outlook on life. We're in conjunction with Tabula Rasa, our role is to prepare people for their treatment. Basically, we don't want people just turning up there with the wrong expectations and with the wrong intentions. It's really important that before, your treatment starts long before you actually arrive at Tabula Rasa. The Ibogaine, the taking of the Ibogaine is not the treatment. That is a stage of the treatment.
Well, one of the things we like to do at Ibogaine Counselling Services is essentially disassociate the addict from their addiction to a certain extent, so they understand the narratives behind their addiction. They're slightly cracked open. The other essential part is to make sure that the client understands that it's a rite of passage. It's something very, very, very profound they're about to do. They need to take it seriously. they need to take themselves seriously. And I suppose the most important quality is that they put respect and reverence into the journey they're about to take. Ibogaine itself, I find, is a little bit like an Old Testament God in some way. And if you don't put the respect and reverence which is needed into your Ibogaine experience, the chances are that Ibogaine can turn around and give you quite a kicking. So I suppose in that way it does act as an Old Testament God. You put respect and reverence into the Ibogaine experience. Ibogaine will give you respect and reverence back.
Yeah, I mean it's important to remember that, you know, all over the world there are communities that have used visionary plants for mental health for hundreds, if not thousands of years, very successfully. In none of these societies is the thinking that the plant alone cures you, that it's a case of just sitting down one day, taking this hallucinogenic material, and then magically, once the effects wear off, your psychological or emotional imbalances are healed. It's a much more holistic process. It's basically, you're part of a ritual in these cultures from the moment you're born, throughout your life, and that provides the scaffolding that enables whether it's Iboga in Africa or ayahuasca in the Amazon or whatever it is, that scaffolding of cultural preparation is really what allows those plants to be effective. So, we come from a culture that doesn't give us that. And so to just turn up and take Ibogaine, you're not really doing what these plants have been used for so successfully for so long. And so we try and provide that in a way, get people's heads in the right place, to understand what they're really doing. Like you said, it's a rite of passage you have to go through. It's not just about taking something.
Yeah, it's not some sort of willy-nilly journey you can take to just get over addiction like that. It's a hero's journey. You've got to attach to the warrior to a certain extent. You've got to fight for this. You've got to fight for your life, because addiction will take it away from you. And if you don't put the intentionality into the process, well, what's the point of doing it?
Well, 2 months ago, I was already living comfy in this prison I created for myself, this isolation cell. I stopped seeing my friends, I felt guilty about using, and all in legal ways. I mean, I was getting prescribed opium from my doctor, and pure Peruvian and Bolivian sea. And it was a lonely place. I had heard about Ibogaine before, and all of a sudden I had this flash. It's like, oh, Ibogaine can reset your addiction. And so I started to look for places, and found Tabula Rasa. And prior to taking the test dose, I did feel a bit of fear. I was like, oh my God, I'm really doing this. I'm really doing this. And there was that moment where I was afraid of being confronted with my deepest demons. But I had already taken the pill, so I knew if I would, put more energy into that, then I'd freak out, and I didn't want that, so I let go. Well, apparently my heart stopped. I went into a seizure and my heart stopped. My heart had been acting out on the monitor for quite a while, apparently, so Fred was already anticipating the worst case scenario. And I'm telling you, I'm so glad he was here, because you know, they do Iboga sessions up on the hill. You know, you have to walk for 2 hours before you get there, and just imagine when something goes wrong. Not so cool was being taken away by the ambulance. The bright lights did not agree at all with the plant. It was a shock. I remember them shaving my chest, my hairy chest, and being taken away. I spent the next 2 days in cardiology in Beja. And when I came back, I was treated with, you know, real food, and I was surrounded by faces I knew. And even when I arrived at the hospital, there's one point I realized that I had no withdrawal symptoms. You know, my back wasn't hurting, and you know, and I wasn't having cold sweats and hot sweats and restless legs and diarrhea and you know, and the feeling that, you know, something was crawling up under my skin and feeling sick, like puking, and there's none of that. As a matter of fact, 3 days later I realized that my tinnitus had disappeared, you know, the ringing in the ears that appeared 2 years ago, suddenly on my birthday, disappeared on my birthday again, because I took Iboga on my birthday, and I died on my birthday, and I was resuscitated on my birthday. So the expectation I had of being reborn was actually literally given to me. First few days were tough, man, as far as energy, you know, in my body. You know, if you want to talk about how I felt physically, I felt like 100 years old, and I looked like 100 years old, and I mean, I shuffled my feet like slowly, like an old man, and almost careening down the hall, you know, barely making it to the table. Day by day, I started to feel better. You know, don't expect the plant to do everything for you. You have to do quite a bit of footwork. And I think the things that they do here, you know, even though you might feel a bit of resistance before, you know, like on the breath work and the Kundalini yoga, and it really has been very, very, very beneficial. Before, it took me, I would say, about 3 months to feel in such, you know, like I've detoxed before, and this is by far, perhaps, in my case, a traumatic experience, but also profound experience that I've had, and how quickly I was able to shift, to become, you know, even when I look at myself in the mirror, I feel like another person, you know. I have reconnected with parts of myself. At moments I've reconnected with myself. I really have. Iboga is like a facilitator, you know. There's someone that gives you the tools or the will to use the tools that are given to reconnect to yourself and stop being in a prison, in an isolation cell. I feel electrified. I feel touched. I feel blessed. Just do it. Just come and do it. I did it. I'm glad I did. I'm looking to a shift of perception and time when medicinal plants become a more integral part of our culture, like they are in other cultures. And I'm grateful for people who put such a thing together.
So my issue with drug addiction was heavy use of crack and heroin, daily use.
What had you tried before to get rid of the addiction?
Just lots of different rehabs, and also trying to detox myself, which might work for a week or so, and then I'd be back in the same situation again. My experience coming to here was fantastic. It was amazing. Everyone was really kind, really looked after me. Yeah, life-changing, to be fair. Really, really life-changing. My experience was not what I expected at all, but quite deep and quite, it really shook everything. It shook everything out, basically. I feel so much lighter, I feel so much clearer, and just and able to process things a lot better now and not sort of feel so sort of dulled. I feel really, really positive about the future. I do have a few, a little bit of fear, but that's because I'm stepping back into, into the normal world. But I feel like I can actually deal with it now. I feel like I've got complete sort of faith that I can cope with it. I would recommend doing Ibogaine to anybody with any addiction. Don't even try anything else, do it.
Why?
Because it's the only thing that will get you out of where you are. I've tried lots of different things, and this truly is the only thing that, it's life-changing. It really is life-changing.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and get instant access to all of our latest medical care videos. Enjoy your free pass to quality global healthcare.